So Donald Trump wiped trillions of dollars off the market on a late Friday afternoon with a simple tweet when he said he was going to impose 100% tariffs on China. But now it looks as if he might have done a little bit of a backflip. We can see he came out with a tweet this morning essentially saying, "Don't worry, China, it will all be fine." So why are we seeing this backflip? Does this mean that the enormous crash that a lot of people were calling for is cancelled? Or is this just yet another opportunity for an inside trader to make some more money? Because let's not forget, there was one trader who made hundreds of millions of dollars when he started shorting the market 1 minute before Donald Trump announced these 100% tariffs on a very illiquid Friday evening for the markets. And guess what? That same trader who perfectly nailed his entry, perfectly nailed his exit when he closed these shorts for a massive profit, he might have just opened another enormous short. Let's have a look at this. We can see, I saw this just a couple of hours ago. Again, I wasn't going to go live again for you guys. It's 7:25 on a Sunday night where I am right now, but I wanted to quickly break down what is going on here because we can see the whale that front ran the crash with a $1.1 billion short is now increasing the size of their Bitcoin short again. And this comes after the news that Trump is essentially open to negotiations with China. They added an additional $160 million to their position. So this here is the whale who made absolute bank. We can see, we got the data, we've got the receipts here that he's opening yet another short. I wanted to quickly talk about what is going on, what this means for the market. As you can see, the market's been incredibly volatile over the past couple of days. Let's recap anyone who might have missed it. Why did we see an enormous wipeout last Friday? Well, it's all because of this. Essentially, the world is fighting over China's dominance on the rare earth metals space. Again, these minerals, these metals, it's incredibly pivotal for anybody wanting to create advanced technological things, whether this is missiles, whether this is semiconductor chips, all of this stuff is very essential. And again, we are in the fight over semiconductor chips around the world. We're not going to get into that just yet, but you can see China absolutely dominates this space. Let's not forget what happened earlier in the week. Everybody was a little perplexed that America came out and said that they were investing in Argentinian pesos and they were offering a $20 billion swap line to Argentina. Why? Because America wants China out of Argentina so America can do trade with Argentina and get their hands on the abundant amounts of minerals in that country. Again, I know it's a little bit boring and we're not a geology YouTube channel, but all of this is very important if you want to understand what the markets are doing, what they're doing now, and what they're going to do next. So let's, again, break down what I think is interesting because, again, I'll remind you guys, this fight over rare earth exports and minerals with America and China, this is not a new story. It is a new story, but this is the same fight that caused the sell-off in April earlier this year. Again, look at this headline. It looks the exact same as what everybody's fighting over today in October 2025. But again, I'll remind you guys, if we have a look at the chart in the S&P 500, what caused the last big sell-off in the S&P 500? What caused this 25% correction in the markets that we're looking at right here in early 2025? It was this headline here. It was the same fight over rare earth minerals. Again, so I'm, slightly coincidental. I'm very suspicious. That's what I am over what is actually going on. Are we just seeing market pumps and dumps and the same old news headlines recirculated to create incredible trading, buying, and selling opportunities for the very collected elite who have, let's say, access to information that we don't? Potentially. This is, again, why I've always warned you guys, be incredibly careful with trading. Again, I'm not about that. There's a lot of fake gurus thinking that they can make money online. It's A lot more difficult than what they're trying to sell you. But again, trying to read into what's going to happen with this candle, we have to kind of dive into what's happening in the Bitcoin market. Because, of course, this is how the S&P 500 closed on Friday. This candle was down 3%. This was the biggest daily drop in months, nearly half a year. And what's interesting is as soon as Trump made this tweet saying essentially the tariffs were over, you could see what Bitcoin did. It recovered pretty strongly here. We could see we bounced from a low of $108,000 based on this data up to $116,000 earlier today. Again, Bitcoin went as low as $102,000 on Binance, on that exchange that we didn't quite cover why I think it was maybe at the center of this very interesting conspiracy theory, because a lot of people are saying, oh, hang on a minute, is it the Trump family or is this just a Binance-centric story? Was it Binance that created one of the biggest liquidations that we've seen in the Bitcoin space? Again, for anyone who might have missed it, I'll quickly just remind you, we saw $20 billion of capital wiped out, absolutely destroyed on Friday night. It was nearly 20 times larger than what we saw in the 2020 crash. Let's not forget, in the 2020 crash, Bitcoin dropped 60% in a day, and we saw only $1.2 billion of capital liquidated. We just saw $20 billion of capital liquidated, and Bitcoin's 12% away from all-time highs. Again, I think that context, it's really important, because right now the markets, they're incredibly fearful. There's no other way to put it. The markets are absolutely melting down, but I think there's multiple reasons for why that is. Firstly, I think everybody is overexposed to crypto. This is the altcoin space. This is all of these altcoins that shed 80 and 90% during this crash. A lot of people were a lot more affected because of that. But again, I'll remind you, look at this. Even during the FTX crash, this was horrific. This was the end of the world. This was a really scary time for people when FTX collapsed and Bitcoin went under $20,000, a level it was never supposed to go under. We only saw $1.6 billion of capital liquidated. We saw $19 billion on Friday. So again, this is a massive wipeout. But I think I want to redirect you guys to some of the signal. Bitcoin continues flying off the exchanges. Despite us being in an era where I believe things are getting more and more volatile, I think the signal here is always important to be aware of. I thought this was an interesting tweet as well. Have you noticed that the crashes are getting shorter and shorter? This is because of the fiscal emergency. This is because the government is bankrupt. This is because, from a first principles basis, the governments have to print money, send stocks absolutely flying, because why? They have too much debt. They cannot allow stock markets to fall to where they should be. It's as simple as that. So again, I always encourage you guys to zoom out, look at things from a first principles basis. I don't think this liquidation event on Friday changed anything. I don't think it changed the fundamentals of Bitcoin. In my live stream yesterday, I showed you the bear case. I showed you, hey, in October, Bitcoin typically is a little bit volatile. Some of the biggest crashes in history have happened in October. We had the panic of 1907, the 1929 stock market crash, which was a 90% crash. We also saw the 2008 global financial crisis, and I believe the Black Monday event in 1987. These all happened in October. So again, just some data that you guys should be aware of. Again, I'll show you both sides of the story, and you can pick where you think we end up. Me personally, I like to zoom out and look at the big picture here. The big picture for me is that I think we're in one of the best bull runs we're ever going to see. I'm going to try to make this chart as big as possible so you guys can see what I'm looking at here, but I don't think the fundamentals have changed. I think Bitcoin is still being ripped off an exchange. It's happening aggressively, and I think we're kind of getting into the part of the cycle where I think things are about to get interesting. What I want to show you is this is the Wall Street cheat sheet. So this tells us where we are in a cycle, where we are. Now, again, Bitcoin's history is essentially a story of cycles. Every 4 years, we see a new mania. And I think this cheat sheet could be at least interesting to be aware of. I genuinely think right now, like, we just had the first kind of correction in this bull run. Again, at the top, you can see there's a lot of euphoria, there's thrill, there's complacency. I haven't felt any of that over the past 2, 3, 4 months. A lot of people are trying to tell you Bitcoin's topped. A lot of people are trying to say, look, there's an anonymous trader who predicted Bitcoin would top on October 6th. He made this prediction 2 years ago. I just don't believe Bitcoin's topped. I don't think we're there. Again, I could be wrong. Could be wrong. Who knows? This is just my gut feeling, but I just don't think we're at a top. It hasn't felt euphoric at all. Retail isn't even in Bitcoin right now. And again, I'll ask the question, how many Bitcoin tops have been set when Google search terms for Bitcoin is at all-time lows? Let's jump on over here. We're going to do it live. We're going to jump on over to the Google search terms. We're going to look for Bitcoin. And I want to see whether... Okay. We've got an uptick here. But what's interesting is I think a lot of this uptick... I'm going to try to share my screen again for you guys. I think this uptick that we're seeing, I think it's more a factor of the crash. I think a lot of people have been looking into Bitcoin during this most recent crash because they're like, hey, why is the crypto market doing what it's doing right now? Here it is. Here's Google search trends for Bitcoin. Have you ever seen Bitcoin top when Google search interest for Bitcoin is 44? Let's zoom out so you guys can see where we were in 2017. You can see pretty clearly what happens in a mania. Look at 2017. We hit 100. Even in 2021, during that muted bull run that I don't think was a real bull run, we still got to Google search trends of Bitcoin for 71. Again, before Bitcoin topped in 2021, it rallied from $10K to $65,000 in under 5 months. It was at $10K in October 2020. I still remember it. At the time, Michael Saylor was buying $400 million of Bitcoin for his publicly traded company, MicroStrategy. He became the first to ever do that. Everybody was looking around at each other saying, hang on a minute, this is hugely bullish. Price is still at 10K. What happened next? We ripped to 65. And what I do think is, again, just something to be cognizant of and remember is that what happened in 2020, before Bitcoin made that rally from 10K to 65K, all of the leverage got wiped out in that 2020 crash. They do say history doesn't repeat, but by golly, does it often rhyme. I think, again, who knows what's going to happen? I do know a lot of people are freaking out about the price. I'm making this video to implore anybody who's thinking about selling their Bitcoin, think about it twice if you are thinking about selling your Bitcoin. Because, again, let's not forget, Q4 is incredibly bullish. Speaking of a little bit of seasonality, I did see this chart here. This is pretty fascinating. Again, it's complicated, so I'll let you guys look at this for a minute. But have a look at what happens in the first 10 days of each month. I do often tell you guys that the Bitcoin market, it's kind of dominated by derivatives and options in the short term. But in the long term, obviously, the only thing that matters is supply and demand. But a lot of these derivatives contracts, they expire on a monthly basis. So I think that's interesting. When you combine that with this data, it looks as if Bitcoin bottoms in the first 10 days of each month. Don't you think that's interesting? I mean, and if history were to repeat, maybe Bitcoin's already bottoms. We did hit that low on September 10. That was when that Friday flash crash to $102,000 happened. Hey, I mean, that's awfully interesting, you have to say. And if that were to be true, then October could be due to commence. I know I've been screaming about October for months now. And hey, if October's negative, come to my channel first and fill the comments up with hate and tell me, Luke, you're wrong. Could be. I have been saying October's typically incredibly bullish for Bitcoin. I mean, we did open the month at 114. Where are we right now? 115,000. Technically, we're positive on the month. Who knows what's going to happen? But I think I would just encourage people. There's a lot of bearishness right now. It's really rare to see bearishness at a top as much as it is. This is my third go around now. This is my third cycle. I watched 2017 from the sidelines. I was all in 2021. This is my third bull run. And I will say, typically when you feel at the top. You can feel it. I mean, in 2021, NFTs were going nuts. Everybody was buying NFTs and becoming a crypto guru. There really is euphoria at the top. You kind of feel it. You can feel it. And right now, I just haven't seen the level of grifting yet that you typically see at tops. Now, or what I have seen is some of the, I like to call them the bear market Bitcoin maximalists start positioning themselves. These are the guys who aren't in Bitcoin, but when they see price run up, they do start to position themselves into the space. I want to play a quick video for you that I saw that just reminded me of that.
Onboard more people into Bitcoin than the Bitcoiners have in the last 13 years.
So that's Grant Cardone. It's famous for many things on the internet. But what I will say is when you see names like Grant Cardone and his brother enter the Bitcoin space in the way they have, it's a signal. It's a signal that Bitcoin, we're not in a parabola yet. Again, we haven't seen Kim Kardashian talking about altcoins yet. And what was it? Logan Paul launching his NFTs. We're going to see all of that again. And it's going to be even bigger than last cycle. I can guarantee you that, sadly. I hope it's not. That's why I make these videos every day, to educate people about real money, Bitcoin. But I think we're just starting to see these names position themselves to make a quick buck off this bull run. It's happening. If we were to look at the Wall Street cheat sheet of Bitcoin, if I had to guess where we are right now, it kind of feels like we're at that first sell-off, the disbelief phase. This rally will fail like the others. Bitcoin's just quietly rallied from $15,000 to $125,000. Retail's sleeping. And I think this sell-off is just yet another one of these sell-offs where I believe retail is sleeping at the wheel. Retail is just like, oh, yep, here we go. The Ponzi's topped. It's all over. It's never making a return. I want to talk a little bit more about what could be coming next, especially when we start looking at the money printers. The money printing side of this equation is, let me just say, it is awfully interesting. I always tell you guys, watch what the money printers do. And I've got some data I want to have a look at when it comes to the money printers, because I do think the money printer is coming. It's coming much quicker than most people think. And again, I'm going to save that for a moment. I don't want to talk about the money printer yet. What I do want to just quickly show you is fundamentals are still strong for Bitcoin. Like we highlighted yesterday, the fundamental reason that drove this Bitcoin rally is still happening. Companies are still buying Bitcoin aggressively. Anthony Pompliano's got one of the biggest publicly traded Bitcoin treasury companies. He came out yesterday. He's buying. That's interesting. So I forget yesterday, I'm not going to harp on it, but yesterday we also showed you that BlackRock coincidentally, I've been trying to fact check this, and it's really difficult to get much information on this exact story. But this is the tweet that I showed you guys yesterday. BlackRock bought 45,000 Bitcoin at an average price of 105K during the flash crash. If you were to just think about that for a minute, think about how long Bitcoin was at $105,000 for. How was BlackRock able to get 45,000 coins? That's a $5 billion buy. That's one of BlackRock's biggest buys. You can see that this chart of Binance, this is Bitcoin USD on Binance, it doesn't even go down to $105,000 a coin. We all know the flash crash was quick, but how was BlackRock able to get their hands on that amount of Bitcoin so quickly, considering the price was there for a second? It was probably a minute or two. Again, that's just something I been keeping an eye on. I think the fundamentals are still strong. I kind of agree with Asher in the comment section. I think the shorts are going to get wrecked. Rob makes a great point. What was that distribution pattern that everyone talked about last cycle? I still think we're going to see parabolas. I agree with All Night Hider in the chat. October and September are historically volatile. We've been talking about this for months now. September is typically the sell-off, the last sell-off before the real volatility kicks off. Apologies, I was late, guys. I was trying to fix my lights, charge all my lights for you guys. Otherwise, I'd be streaming in a dark cave like the basement dweller I am. I had to charge the lights behind me. I apologize about that. I promised I'd get into the money printing stuff. I want to get into that in a moment. Before we do, I'll remind you guys, again, do not trust BlackRock for your Bitcoin. If you've still got Bitcoin on an exchange after what happened on Friday, you probably need to reinvestigate that. I always tell you guys, if you don't have Bitcoin in self-custody, what are you doing? I think one of the best ways to get your hands on Bitcoin is to not trust an exchange and to actually mine it yourself, okay? Now, again, a lot of people might not like to buy a Bitcoin mining rig. Some people do, some people don't. This is why I like Blockware, because they give you the optionality to not only do hosted mining, but also invest in the Bitcoin mining rigs themselves. And again, in America, for those who might have missed it, the Big Beautiful Bill, the BBB, that was recently passed. And that now gives American citizens the opportunity at a 100% tax write-off by buying Bitcoin mining machines. So you could buy Bitcoin mining machines that's going to mine you Bitcoin. You're effectively buying Bitcoin through the machines, and you can use that as a tax write-off. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not tax advice. But it sounds like you're getting free Bitcoin. Of course you're not, but I would encourage you guys to at least look into that. I think Blockware is the number one space or the Bitcoin mining company for you guys to explore. Book a call with them. There's a link down below if you guys do want to learn a little bit more about how you can write off 100% of the cost of Bitcoin mining hardware in a single tax year. Tell them Luke sent you. They'll look after you. And seriously, just consider how you're storing your Bitcoin today. Because again, these centralized exchanges will continue to go bust. So many people in 2022 thought that it'd be impossible for BlockFi, FTX, and Celsius to all go bankrupt, but they did. And that is because, again, why was Bitcoin created? We don't want a single point of failure. We shouldn't be trusting single points of failures. This is, again, another reason why I also think that we're seeing the number of Bitcoin on exchanges absolutely drop the way it is dropping right now. People are now beginning to come to the realization that holding Bitcoin on an exchange is a terrible idea. It's honestly a really, really bad idea. If I were to find you one of my favorite charts, it is Bitcoin on exchanges for the entire life cycle of Bitcoin. I think this looks the way it does for multiple reasons. The first being, I just don't think a lot of people understood the value proposition of Bitcoin before 2020. Again, before 2020, everybody thought Bitcoin was a Ponzi, it was a scam. It was just something that you buy and it was something that you trade for more dollars. This is what so many people just thought Bitcoin was pre-2020. There's no fundamental need for Bitcoin. Now that's different. Now people understand Bitcoin's the thing you hold for 20 years. And hey, if you're going to hold it for 20 years, you may as well hold it in your own self-custody. So again, I think the trend that we're now seeing of Bitcoin leaving the exchanges as aggressively as it is, I think this is just the beginning. I wish this chart here would zoom out. It's not doing it for me. The one I want to show you is a 16-year chart. Let me try again. This chart here kind of highlights my point. Not exactly the way I want it to, but for 16 years, this number of Bitcoin on exchanges just rose until 2020. Since 2020, it's dropped like a rock for 5 years consecutively. We started 2020 with 3.1 million Bitcoin on exchanges. And again, depending upon how you measure it, which data set you look at, there's around 1 million less Bitcoin on exchanges than there was in 2020. And I think this is not just because there's been a level up in the understanding of Bitcoin. I think it's also because who is the buyer of Bitcoin? The big money's involved, BlackRock, Michael Saylor, etc. But it's also the technology. There's now no excuse to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. This is another reason why this chart looks like that. It's because it's never been easier to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Okay, again, if you guys did want to take self-custody of your Bitcoin, I'll remind you guys, ton of great hardware wallets in the space. Go get one. A couple that I think are super easy for beginners are Ledgers and Trezors. I've got the Trezor Model 5 here. They've got a great little hardware wallet. They're going to give you 5% off if you use a promo code Luke at the link down below. So I highly recommend you go get one of those. They got 3 great models for you guys to choose from, 3 great options. Another great one that I've personally used since 2017, a legend. Uh-oh, microphone went there for a minute. Are we back or are we back? Okay, are we back? Don't tell me I nearly got cancelled online again. No, I jokes aside, I think that was me. I think I accidentally unplugged my mic. Apologies about that. Again, if you don't want to get your microphone unplugged and your freedom of speech unplugged, like I was saying, Bitcoin in self-custody is the only solution. You guys have seen what's going on in the UK right now. If you don't have freedom of speech, you certainly will not have freedom to transact. So again, Bitcoin in self-custody, go grab a Ledger. Ledger's another easy, beginner-friendly wallet option. Use the link down below. They're going to give you $10 of free Bitcoin. 4 great options for you guys to check out. Hey, look at that. Ledger Nano S. This is the one that I actually bought 7 years ago. $59. Cheapest chips. No excuses. The technology just keeps getting better in the Bitcoin space. The number of excuses there is to not self-custody your Bitcoin is non-existent right now. Again, another great technological solution that just makes Bitcoin safety and security more easy is Bitvault. Bitvault is a really cool Bitcoin company that makes creating a time-locked Bitcoin wallet easy. Again, I've told you the story about how I spent about 2 weeks locked in a cave in 2020, trying to not only run my own node, but also set up a multi-signature wallet. And I did it. I did it eventually. It took me a couple of weeks. I did it all via Electrum, created this very advanced multi-signature wallet where my Bitcoin was essentially locked in a forever cave, so to say. And again, I spent a lot of time. I think Bitvault's a great company that creates a product that just saves you a ton of time. I've used them. I've set up a multi-signature wallet in minutes, and you can set up time-locked wallets. So you can determine how long a Bitcoin or Bitcoins or Satoshis, fractions of a Bitcoin, come on, can stay locked inside a wallet. You can program it to stay locked for a week, a month, a year, or a decade. Century if you want. It's entirely up to you. I think Bitvault's super cool. There is now, I believe, less than 5 lifetime deals left on Bitvault. Again, they're a brand new company, so this is a pre-sale. You get lifetime access for $199. Take advantage of it while it lasts. It will not last long. I know there's less than 5 spots now. After those first 42 spots are gone, you're going to have to get a monthly subscription. Yeah, it's still cheap and still worth the dollars, but hey, grab a lifetime access while it's still available. Now let's talk a little bit more about that money printer that I mentioned. Look at that. All Night Hider, the OG on the channel, has put links to every single partner that you need to level up your security in the chat. Thank you very much, my man. Now, the chart I want to show you, let me quickly bring it up. It's Bitcoin and M2. I was looking at it this morning. I'm seeing some interesting things, because we all know, I don't think the money printers have really been turned on yet. And again, that's not an opinion, that's the facts. Have a look at this chart. It's incredibly clear. You can see the blue. This is the year-on-year growth of the M2 money supply. This is global as well. This isn't just American data. This is looking at the entire world. You can see how essentially every 4 years, it's a wave. So you see it increase and then it decreases. Right now, we've seen something really interesting. Yes, it's starting to tick up, but we haven't quite seen that explosive growth that you see at the end of some of these 4-year liquidity cycles. Sure, we're increasing. That's clear. But if history were to repeat, and I tell you all the time why I don't think history will repeat forever, you can see that we've got about 6 months ahead of us where M2 is probably going to explode. And we know that Bitcoin's relatively correlated to this M2 money supply growth. When the M2 chops sideways and there's less liquidity in the system, Bitcoin struggles a little bit and it cools off after its parabolic phase. It's normal. Makes sense. Now, if this thing starts ripping, it's all now starting to align for this. It's not a thesis, but I think it's why I'm a little bit bullish to end Q4. Again, it's been a year and a half since the halving. We can see it really clearly. October, November, and December are all incredibly bullish for Bitcoin. I think we're now getting to that stage of the year again where I expect things to get a little bit heated here. Again, when things do get heated, I'll remind you guys, please never make the most important mistake in Bitcoin, and that is selling your Bitcoin. Again, I'll tell you, I'm not a financial advisor, not a tax accountant, but it makes sense. If you have to sell an asset, most countries require you to pay taxes. If you really need liquidity from your Bitcoin stack increasing in value, why not borrow against it? Of course, you shouldn't borrow against it because there's scams like Celsius, BlockFi, and FTX that are essentially kind of like Schrodinger's box. You put your Bitcoin in and you don't know what's happening. You don't know if you open the box and there's Bitcoin or not. That's why there's not many options that I like. One option is, of course, Firefish. That's because they're not a borrowing or a yield or a lending company. They're none of those three. They're a Bitcoin peer-to-peer marketplace. So I use Firefish personally because they're a marketplace that connects me with a lender. Again, very transparent about where the yield comes from. This is why I love Firefish. You can see on the platform, on the landing page, there's a borrow section where you can borrow against your Bitcoin. And there's an invest section where you can lend dollars or stable coins and get a yield. I mean, revolutionary idea. Connect a borrower and a lender. But that's what Firefish has done. It's beautiful because it's simple. It works. I've got a couple of loans on Firefish. Highly recommend you guys check them out. They're going to give you 30% off if you use promo code Luke. Again, another tool that should be in your Bitcoin bull market toolkit, so to say. And again, I always encourage you guys, take care of all of this nitty-gritty security stuff when the price is somewhat boring before we get into the exponential phase of the parabola. Because when Bitcoin starts moving, it's going to do so quickly, and you're going to be caught with your pants around your ankles. A lot of people found this out on Friday. All of the centralized exchanges were closed. Every single one of them. Well, let me retract that. The majority of the centralized exchanges had issues. They were out for a certain amount of time. So I always tell you, you might not be able to sell or buy when you want to buy or sell in a period of panic. So go and deal with all this now while it's boring, because shit's going to get wild. Shit's going to get interesting. Again, in 2017, I talk about this all the time. Bitcoin 20x'd in 9 months. Between March and December of 2020, Bitcoin went from 1K to 20K. A lot of people think it's impossible that Bitcoin does that again. I'm not going to lie, it's unlikely, but I do think it's more likely than most people think. So we pull up the chart of Bitcoin. If Bitcoin were to 20x, in 9 months. And again, it kind of feels like we got 9 months left of the bull run, if I'm being honest. Feels like we got at least 6. We're nowhere near euphoria. I mean, hey, if Bitcoin simply repeated history, 20x in 9 months, what are we looking at? We're looking at $2 million Bitcoin by what? Q2 2026? I know it sounds crazy. I get it. It's unlikely, but I do think it's more likely than most people think. So go and deal with all the boring stuff now. Again, I tell you all the time, there's probably people with 10K of Bitcoin, 20K of Bitcoin. They think I've got my toe in the water. Yeah. I don't need to worry about it. It's just a small position. If Bitcoin does what it's done before historically, that small position could turn into a pretty large position much quicker than you might think. And if you got 0.1 Bitcoin, sat on an exchange today thinking, I don't give a shit. $12,000. Peanuts. It could turn into $250,000 quicker than you think. So just be aware of that. Bills out here in the wazoo. I tell you what, if Bitcoin 20x'd, I can't say that. Apologies. I'm going to control myself. It's a Sunday night. I'm going to keep this live stream PG rated before I get myself in trouble. If you want to watch more videos of me getting myself in trouble, for those who don't know, I have a channel documenting all of my crazy journeys around the world. I've traveled to like 55 countries over the past 3 years. And I document that journey and show you some of the crazy adventures I'm up to on my other YouTube channel. That is the Digital Fugitive. We dropped a video yesterday where I explained why all of the travel advice is wrong. And so many people say the food in Mexico is great. It's dangerous in Colombia. It's great to date as a gringo in Colombia. The food in Bali is incredible. There's a lot of advice. I think a lot of it's wrong. If you're interested in traveling or geographical sovereignty or buying a passport or buying a tax residency to lower your taxes, I talk about all of those stuff on that channel. So go subscribe if you're interested. Really appreciate the support. I like to think the videos over there are even better than over here. But with all that said, guys, I might end this one here. 740. Oh, look at this. I've got a cool little feature on my StreamYard. It tells me 556 of you guys are on Twitter. Welcome. 189 of you guys are putting up with this big mug on YouTube. Well, that said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. Wish you a happy Sunday. You may or may not see me tomorrow. Stay safe out there. Go buy some Bitcoin while it's cheap. Not financial advice.